turn now to the Virginia Senator Mark Warner. He's the vice chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee and is live with us from the Rotunda on Capitol Hill. Sir, thank you.
Thank you, Shep.
Does the intel community have any hard proof that the Trump campaign members or Mike Flynn had any improper or illegal contacts with the Russian government?
What we have are the press reports.
But do you have any hard evidence?
No, let's put it like this. We believe that we need to see the transcript of the conversation before we reach any final conclusion. But what we do have is the facts and the actions of General Flynn. He relayed one set of information which now appears not to be true. We don't know what he told the president or didn't tell the president. We don't know what he told the vice president or not. It appears that he, in effect, left the vice president, in effect, hanging out to dry as the vice president vouched for what General Flynn said.
We know the accusations, but, sir, as a member of the intel community, as the vice chair of that committee, as the number one Democrat on that committee, is there any evidence that Donald Trump had any improper or illegal contacts with Russians or was compromised by the Russians in any way?
I don't have that information.
Well, unless and until we have that information, why do we...
Let me answer your question. Your question is, we have a senior official in the Trump administration giving one set of information when it appears that there were facts coming out, that it appears at least that the FBI, when they had an interview, you now have that official changing his story, which led to a resignation. Any reasonable person would say, we need to find out what happened here. We need to make sure, and I would think the Trump administration would want to remove this and get to the bottom of this as quickly as the rest of us.
And some Republicans say they want to do that as well. Here's Bob Corker from earlier today. Listen.
The base issue is getting to the bottom of what the Russian interference was and what the relationship was with associates of the Trump effort. And so that is the big elephant in the room that has got to be dealt with in the most appropriate way. Is the White House going to have the ability to stabilize itself? I mean, this affects us not just with international issues that are brewing all around the world, all kinds of problems, but the domestic agenda here. The big issue right now is dealing with this Russia issue, making sure that it doesn't destabilize our ability to move ahead as a country and deal with important issues.
So some Republicans are very much with you on this matter. Well, what's the next step?
Let's also go through and look. Chairman Richard Burr and I, in a bipartisan way, say we want to pursue this wherever the intelligence leads. We've said this investigation long before these conversations about General Flynn came out were to cover three items. One, it was cover the use that Russia did of misinformation, false news to try to interfere in the election. Two, the use of Russia's hacked information into the DNC and John Podesta and selective usage of that information to try to influence our campaigns and our election process. And three, any contacts between officials of either campaign and Russian officials before and after the election. I think any American would want to find that out because the very same tactics the Russians used in our election process, I'm fearful they're going to use in the French elections, in the German elections, and the Dutch elections as well. And we need to get to the bottom of it. And the good news is that you've got, whether it's my friend Bob Corker or Lindsey Graham, myself, Richard Burr, we all want to get to the truth and, frankly, get a little bit away from the Democrat-Republican back and forth that seems to dominate so much of the news.
Can Congress demand to see Donald Trump's tax returns, and do you think that might be illuminating on any potential dealings with Russia?
Listen, I think that is an open question. Obviously, the Intelligence Committee, through investigations, has subpoena power. I think there are a number of members of both parties that wish that Mr. Trump would have followed historical precedents that was set by every presidential candidate, Democrat or Republican, and released that tax information. Where we go with our investigation, we're not anywhere near that at this point. But what we've got to deal with in the immediate time right now is the case of what General Flynn said initially, how he changed his information. Obviously, that led to his resignation. And did this allow and somehow the Russians to have some ability to have influence over General Flynn?
As Vice Chairman of the Intelligence Committee, have you been briefed on any of those matters? If not, why not? And have you requested briefings?
We have requested those briefings. Obviously, this is happening real time. It's hard to get through a 24-hour news cycle without a series of new information coming forward. But we expect, and I know we will be briefed from our counterintelligence role.
But you've received no briefing so far?
We have not received specific briefings on the content of the conversation that took place between General Flynn and the Russian ambassador. And that's, again, where both Richard Burr and I believe we need to see the contents of that conversation before we leap to some conclusion.
If the FBI and other intel agencies have been looking into Trump's campaign contact officials for nearly a year now, why haven't there been indictments? I mean, should our viewers not believe this could just be some sort of political smear campaign? We don't have all the information, but here are the allegations. You deal with them?
Here's what I would say. I find it really upsetting and, frankly, a little insulting when I hear, whether it's political individuals or commentators or others, insult the work of our intelligence community. These are people who put their lives on the line every day to keep our country safe. They are patriots of both parties. I trust their work, and we're going to go through this in an orderly fashion. I know there are people in both sides, some that want to sweep this under the rug, others that want to turn this into a witch hunt. What Richard Burr and I want to do is to do this in an orderly, bipartisan way, and frankly, wouldn't that be a little bit refreshing in this town?
What's the next move, Senator?
The next move, I hope, will be getting the specific transcript of that conversation between General Flynn
How do you do that?
And the Russian ambassador. We will have, we are expecting that briefing to come from the intelligence community, and I expect to have that very shortly.
Will you put Flynn under oath and ask him to testify?
Well, I think what we've got to do first is we've got to look at the content of that conversation. If that content indicates that General Flynn misrepresented himself, whether to the president or to the vice president, yes, I hope he is then put under testimony, and I believe that testimony ought to be in front of the Intelligence Committee.
And if he didn't do any of that, where does he go to get his reputation back?
Well, if he didn't, then that information should be released as well. But what we've seen so far, you know, we've got one set of facts. We've got the facts that the National Security Advisor to the President of the United States gave one set of facts. He now, on his own, has changed his own version of that set of facts. That has resulted in the President of the United States losing trust in him and asking for his resignation. We need to know what happened, and at the end of the day, the thing that will tell us the most will be the transcript of that conversation.
Senator Mark Warner, Democrat of Virginia, sir, we thank you very much for being here. Of course, it was President Trump who said today that wasn't what did it, that it was the bad